All right. Now we get to Songun, S-O-N-G-U-N, which is basically my major interest in all this, or at least stimulated my interest, are the military first policy. The son of Kim Il-sung was Kim Jong Un. And he, during his father's lifetime, he tended to become involved in leading positions in ideology and the military. And he melded these two areas together to develop the Songun, or military first ideology, which is the second reigning ideology in Korea. Right? First reigning, Juche. Second, Songun. Okay.
What did you call the first one?
Juche.
Juche.
Okay.
Now, structurally,
When I ask a question, he can answer.
structurally, what this meant was a new chain of command. The previous chain of command had gone from the supreme leader to the Korean Workers' Party to the government. The new chain of command went from the supreme leader to the National Defense Council, then to the Korean Workers' Party, then on to the government. Yeah. So this elevated the military. You know, military first, right? First means second in Korea, right? This also increased the military control over natural resources, industry, trade, and agriculture. I said it had been increasing, military had been increasing over the years under Juche, but this was a jump, a leap. Military first meant that the army became the leading force in North Korea. It took over the place of the working class. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later. And soldiers' revolutionary consciousness became the highest level of political consciousness of all classes and social groups. That all others were to aspire to this idea of military, or pardon me, a soldier's revolutionary consciousness. And the military then became the vanguard of the revolution. And its ideology became the vanguard ideology. Now, I want to quote somewhat extensively from a paper on this to give you, I could go in and explain this, but I want to give you more of a detailed thing, and it'd be quicker just to give quotes off of a guy named Han S. Park. I don't know if anybody familiar with him? Okay. Park is a Korean American who's visited the North Korea extensively since the 1980s. Until he retired, he was Georgia State University as a political science professor. He's written about 5 or 6 books on the subject, and I regard him as one of the very best in terms of a fair, objective analysis. He tries to look at North Korea the way the North Koreans look at themselves and the world. Anyhow, this is from his paper on Songun, which I'll hit a few things on. Juche and Songun are inseparable in that Songun is predicated on the principles of Juche. The Songun theorists claim that Songun has advanced Juche to a higher level by providing it with a realistic perspective on the history and politics of the world as it currently exists. The military is the guardian, as I say, of the body. It provides all of the other institutions of the government with legitimacy. All policy goals are articulated by the military and then disseminated by other organizations with specific strategic and tactical recommendations for implementation. After their policies are implemented, their effectiveness is evaluated by the military. This was since I written in 2007. The military and civilian sectors are one and indivisible, and the National Defense Council makes decisions and issues directives and orders for the whole country. In North Korea, the military is not an abstract authority, but a practical performer. It responds directly and effectively to people's needs and wants. It delivers in a way that no others can. It delivers goods and services to the people and provides security. For example, many farmers that I spoke with responded when I asked them about what they thought about Songun, what it meant. They said things like, quote, "It's the military that makes farming possible, as the soldiers come into the village to perform the complex range of farming tasks from toiling the soil to seeding, irrigating, and harvesting. The military not only protects us from foreign hostility, but it delivers foods and services." The military has food and other necessities in relatively ample supply because of its independent accounting system, whereby the military retains the revenues it generates from exporting military equipment, including both missiles and conventional weapons. In this way, the military is in a position to share its resources with the public. This also allows the military to perform the service of delivering foreign aid food to civilians, even in the most remote villages. Not only is the military regarded as an embodiment of legitimate power and authority, it's also considered the most able problem solver in practically all spheres of people's lives. Each unit of dwellers, called a ban, is assigned a military post that is responsible for looking after all the occupants' needs, ranging from repairing household electrical appliances to fixing faucets and sewage systems. People are supposed to trust the military is equipped with the resources, knowledge, and skills necessary to solve such everyday problems of people's lives. In this way, the doctrine calls for the complete dependence of the people on the military. The popular belief is, quote, "No problem is too big or too small for the military to solve," unquote. The military is also prime opinion leader. People trust the soldiers as the best educated in ideological preparation. In fact, military education always places ideology and politics at the top. That, of course, comes from Juche. When soldiers are on leave from their barracks, they are, in essence, assigned to their hometown to teach villagers in such a way that the persons will be prepared to carry on the revolution just as actively as the soldiers themselves. People are expected to look up to the military for visionary leadership. The norms and values desirable for the society are created by the military. With the 10-year compulsory military service, that includes active duty and reserve, is 10 years. And a large portion of the population, in excess of 1 million, serving in the military at a given time, fourth largest military in the world. Virtually every family has at least one soldier in the military service. Now, there is the regular military, but there are also two militias. There's a workers' militia, and there's a student militia. They're called Red Guards. Okay? So that if you're not in the military, if you served your 10 years, okay, you can get into the workers' militia, or if you're a student, you get into the student militia. In fact, there is hardly any separation at all between the military and civilian sectors. Practically all physically functioning people in the country are mobilized into the various people's militias. It's no surprise that military culture is a North Korean culture. The Songun doctrine has created a belief system in which it is no longer the Korean Workers' Party that leads the way, neither is it the government that assumes the role of leadership. The military, under Songun, the policy is to integrate the three components of human existence: the mind, the body, the spirit. Okay? The ideal person is someone who embodies those three elements. And the military embodies these elements at the highest level. That is, through martial arts, that is the body, through education and training in the arts and sciences, the mind, and devotion to a sense of mission for life, or the spirit. The military houses the best manifestations of all three, mind, body, spirit. For instance, military artists are revered. The military houses the best scientists. And of course, the military shows its resolve and unwavering loyalty in the cause of fighting the most powerful country in the world, the United States. There are three principles in the military. One, live and die with the leadership to the end. Second, achieve its assigned goal at all costs. And third, the spirit of self-sacrifice for the greater good. In the military and the family, the tie between the family and the military is intimate. a family contributing to the military in an extraordinary way is praised by the public and rewarded by the government. When there's more than one member on active duty, the family is rewarded with a variety of tangible ways, such as larger food ration and additional prerequisites regarding other daily necessities. When all children are in the military, the government sends workers to the parents to help them with their household chores. Okay, you get the idea. All right, I don't want to belabor this, although I will in a minute. There is the question of Marxism and the working class and the military. Over a period of years, Kim Il-sung and later Kim Jong-il made statements, and certainly by 1994 when Songun was declared an official ruling ideology, they made statements which first limited Marxism-Leninism and then, in essence, denounced it. That is, denounced it as as good for maybe a certain period of time, but not good for the present time, and certainly not good for the DPRK. And that's when I say that they replaced Marxism-Leninism with Juche and Songun. And secondly, in relationship to the working class, the military having the highest level of consciousness, revolutionary soldiers' consciousness, the highest level of consciousness, playing a central role in government, or a central role in politics, a central role in the economy. In essence, soldiers became a crucial part of the working class in terms of what they actually did in the economy. That they took over as the vanguard of the revolution, and the working class became secondary. Not insignificant, but secondary in terms of their role, the working class, and in terms of their ideology. I can go and in defense of Songun, written by an Englishman who's, as I say, was a total devotee of the North. He's one of the ones that find no criticism. Okay, this is a doctoral dissertation he wrote for the Academy of Social Sciences for the DPRK. All right, and I was tempted to read it, but given the time element, I won't. But what I was going to read was the defense of why Marxism was replaced by Songun and Juche, and secondly, why the working class was replaced by the military. Okay, I hope you understand. I mean, I could go into a lot of detail quotes. Kim Il-sung, Kim Jong-il. He quotes them extensively in this and explains why Marxism is okay for a certain period, say during industrial capitalism and during the period of the overthrow of capitalism. But after that, as a revolution proceeds in its socialist phase, okay, it becomes obsolete. And these new ideologies become the pertinent ones, given the conditions, especially in the DPRK. And why the military becomes the leading group, not the leading class, but the leading group in society and the vanguard of the revolution. Okay? Like I say, I could go into detail. He goes into a lot of detail explaining the rationale and so on and so forth. Very interesting, but time is...
Next week.
Yeah, time is on me. So anyhow, let me get to the last thing I wanted to mention. Byungun, Byungjin, or it's the simultaneous development of nukes and economic development. This was announced first in 2011 by Kim Jong Un, right, who's the third member of the family who took over after his father died in 1994. 1994? No, sorry, that's the 2013? 2011, his father died. And the current young Kim took over. The North Korean media describe it as an attempt to develop both the energy and nuclear industry, or nuclear weapons industry, and to develop the economy, okay, co-equally. This is nothing new. It goes back to the 1960s when, let's see, 1960s? Yeah, when Kim Il-sung said that there should be the co-equal development of the military and the economy, or as he more colorfully put it, weapons in one hand, hammer and sickle in the other. Okay? But as it developed, as we've seen, that arms developed quicker than the hammer and sickle. So that it's seen as this is an attempt to make it more equal again, especially given the current conditions. I can say the conditions are such that today that there's still an energy and food shortage. If you use United Nations statistics, for example, since they have a lot of food aid into the north, that the food shortages, according to the UN, in 1917, 694,000 tons of food that they were short of. 5 to 7% of youth were malnutritioned.
You mean 2017?
And this was mostly in cities outside Pyongyang and in towns, and less so in rural areas. But anyhow, the idea here was it's cheaper to develop nukes than it is to pour a lot of money into a large army. So what you do is hopefully, okay, in combination with selling weapons and other material and other production from the military abroad to get money, okay, the money that you save from building nukes, okay, would go into the rest of the economy. How successful this has been is still questionable. Every source that I've read is still that the military production is greater than the civilian production, although civilian production has increased. Okay. But there's also been some structural changes. Okay. The major structural change is that instead of the National Defense Council being number 2 after the Supreme Leader, number 2 is now the what's called the Commission on State Affairs, which is a combination of economic and social and political and military personages. Okay? And then after that, in third place, comes the National Defense Council. Kim Jong Un, however, still states that the Songun and Juche are the ruling ideologies. Only he tends to talk about them as Kimilsungism and Kimjungilism. Now, I was a little bit confused about this, and so I was able to find the author of this in England, Dermot Hudson. I found him on LinkedIn. And I asked him about it. I said, what role does byungun represent? He said, this is how he answered me. Thanks for your email and blah, blah, blah. For the time being, byungun has been suspended and the line of devoting all efforts to economic construction has been applied. Songun means a policy of giving priority to the armed forces. Byungun is still closely related to Songun. It is the line of developing the nuclear forces and economy in parallel, a modern form of the line of building national defense and the economy in parallel that was first advanced by the great leader, President Kim Il-sung in 1962. Basically, Songun is a core principle with Juche, whereas byungun is a strategic and tactical line and an application of Songun and Juche. Okay? So two tend to be still the ruling ideology, but the other is a strategic line for the development of the economy and nukes together. Now, I'm going to stop there. I could talk about, what I'm saying begs a question about unification and a second question about what's going on with nukes and this whole thing about denuclearization and everything else. But if you have questions or comments about that, I'll be glad to take them. Just as I said in the beginning, I'm a novice, and so my work in this area is a work in progress. Okay? This talk is a work in progress. So I'll stop there and let you progress beyond that. Thank you.